right, we're live. I'm your host, EJ Parker, here at Vintage Classic Solutions. This is my antique store, my vintage and antique store, my passion, and this is a collection we're about to see. Do I have everything I need around me? Yes. Surrounded by what I need. Okay, so this is a collection of vintage and antique Faith Chalkware. Faith, most these are all from the Christian tradition. Yes, predominantly Catholic, I'm gonna say, as I look around. And these are things I find out and about in my routine of looking for antique and vintage items. So every day, all day, I'm out looking antique stores, thrift stores, garage sales, flea markets, for rare and desirable items to put in my store, my vintage and antique store. So what I come across are gorgeous things like this. These Chalkware statues. These are from the we could talk about the Chalkware history. We have to talk about that. We're going to talk about a lot because I have a lot of statues here, various sizes, but these are predominantly from the let's say 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, early 50s. After around 1955, what we see. And by the way, it's freezing. I'm your host, EJ Parker. Thanks for joining me. This is Vintage Classic Solutions, my antique and vintage store. This is a collection of Faith Chalkware, things like this. I have a lot all around me. We're going to look through and talk about the aesthetics of them, and then also a bit about the saints or the renderings of the divine they represent. My co-host today is Chat GPT. Hello. Welcome. So please subscribe if you haven't. We have a lot to look through today. It's going to be like a fun, relaxed thing because I'm out in the garage. Usually I'm out in the garage, and AKA my warehouse, and it's freezing out there. I mean, today it's like 9. I think it's 7 degrees Fahrenheit. 7 degrees Fahrenheit. Hello, everybody. 7 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's like being on the moon. So I'm not doing anything in the garage at all. So I brought all these beautiful Chalkware statues inside to show all of you, and we'll talk about it. And if you know something more than I do about these, please share it. I'm doing great. How are you doing? Dr. Supreme. Hello, everybody. Welcome. I'm your host, EJ Parker. We are live. So it's so cold out. It's like the house at night is shrinking. You can hear the wood, like, and I think it's gonna be cold enough tonight where if you get like a cup of water and like throw it up in the air, it'll freeze. And if that happens, we'll go live and I'll show that, because that's not vintage or antique, but that's classic cold, right? Hot tamale, that's cold. All right, so first let's talk about like Chalkware, okay? Like what it is a little bit, and when it started, why it started, and then when it stopped. So this is a good example right here. So what we have here is two statues, similar size. One's a rendering of the Sacred Heart of Jesus Christ, and this is St. Jude. This is plastic, and this is Chalkware, all right? So plastic took over around 1955, give or take, right? Late 50s, early 60s. Chalkware was used, in this context from, let's say, imports into the United States, created in the United States, 20s, 30s through the early 50s. Now, Chalkware was used for a few reasons. Now, what's Chalkware? It's plaster of Paris. It's plaster. It's a white, chalky substance, hence the name Chalkware, right? You can see on this statue, this is a gorgeous statue, under the paint where it's chipped, right? It's just that white, porous, it's like chalk. That's why it's Chalkware. Chalkware was used for a lot of other stuff, like carnival prizes in the United States, like back in the day, like the 30s and 40s. But it was used for faith statuary because it was durable and cheap, semi-durable. it was cheap to produce. And then once painted, it's a great, gorgeous rendering of, you know, the divine or a saint or whatever you're trying to make. It's cheaper compared to what? Cheaper compared to things like marble, right, or stone. Hello, everybody. We're looking at a collection of vintage and antique faith statuary. This is all. There's a lot around here. Talking about like what is chalkware, right? This is a material. It's like this chalky substance, plaster of Paris, and how these statues were made were basically they'd make a mold, right, out of I don't know, like rubber or whatever, and then the mold of the statue, and then they would make a plaster of Paris, like a paste, pour that into the mold, right? They pour it in, and then I think they would like hammer it a little bit to release the bubbles, like gently tap it to release the bubbles, so everything forms correctly, and then it's got to sit for a while, obviously, and then I think they like in a kiln, I think it is, where they kind of bake it, and then they take it out, and then it's done, but it's all white, so they have to like go through and inspect it and sand any imperfections, and then I think they use like a primer, like a paint to like a beige or whatever to coat the plaster, and then they hand paint it, and that's when the artistry really comes through, because you can see just the detail on this one alone. It's all hand painted, and I love the fact that you can see the passage of time and circumstance with the chips, and just kind of like the decoloration just from, who knows, being in the window or whatever on a shelf. This is probably this is like mid-late 20th century. This is made in Italy by Columbia Statuary. So chalkware was way more durable than, or more affordable than making a statue out of marble, because like that's expensive. Like not everyone, if you want like a rendering of a saint, like not everyone can afford a marble statue, right? I get it. So this was an alternative that was affordable, right? That makes sense. And they also look beautiful with the hand painted details. These come from typically Europe, and a lot of them are made in the States by typically families that immigrated right from Europe. So this one is made in Italy. This is gorgeous. I found this at a thrift store probably about a year ago, and I rediscovered it on a shelf. This is beautiful. I love how it just reflects the passage of time. So this one, so you see kind of like the difference, and then plastic took over around 1955 on. This is indicative, like this beige color is like, late 50s, 60s, and it went on to the 70s and 80s, like this beige religious statuary. I can recall seeing these as a kid, like in Catholic school. All right, so let's continue on. So let's talk about this. I'm going to try to figure out how I can do this to where they're all displayed, yet I have room. So this next one is amazing. I have to show this one. I've showed this before. I'm learning about this one, and YouTube's helping me learn. Let me maybe put the Sacred Heart back here. I gotta figure out how to do this carefully, because again, these are fragile. No rings on. Took the rings off. I'm a slave to fashion, but this will chip. These are really porous. This is like almost the star of the show. I found this at a garage sale in a shoebox. It was all broken, and I glued it back together as best as I could. So this at first confused me in like the imagery, right? There's no words on it. It doesn't say like, oh, because it's always about the apparition of the Virgin Mary. What does that mean? Like the version or the vision that someone had of the Virgin Mary. Like the Virgin Mary, like, Our Lady of Guadalupe, Our Lady of Lourdes. There's many, many, many all throughout the world. So this one I found in a predominantly Catholic area of Northeast Ohio. And but the imagery, the more I learn about other things like Orthodox Christianity, I'm like, well, wait a minute, this looks like the Theotokos. Theotokos is, I think I have it like this. Like, is this imagery, these icons, but this is also Our Lady of Perpetual Help. which is like Eastern Catholicism. And then, but this is also Greek. This is also like Orthodox. This also could be like a Orthodox Russian Christianity. So it can be really confusing because on this statue there's no label. It doesn't say Our Lady of Perpetual Help. It doesn't say Theotokos, which means God bearer or Mother of God. So it's confusing, but the more I study it, the more I learn about it, right? And I featured this on a YouTube video where I'm talking about the symbology, and I was learning about, because it's like a life blog, you know what I mean? Like I don't know everything, and when I acquire things as an antique and vintage dealer, I have to learn about them. And I think YouTube's a great tool to expose others to these beautiful objects, and you know, I can learn. It's like a symbiotic relationship. If someone knows something about this more so than I, and they share it, well, then that's great. You know what I mean? I like that. That's how I learn. So, like, for example, when I first got this, I didn't know these symbols, like these angels. One's holding, it's obviously a cross, the like the Orthodox style cross. And this, I couldn't tell what this was. These two over here, these two objects, I thought were a harp, but no, it's the spear and the sponge on the reed that when Christ was crucified, those were like there's like a sacred. There's a specific word for these. I forget the terminology in theology, but it's a spear and the soaked vinegar sponge on a reed. Now I know, just like we see here in this Our Lady of Perpetual Help, right? But it's the same imagery as the Theotokos, Orthodox Christianity, Greek Orthodox Christianity. So it can be confusing, but it's fun to learn about. And so someone made a video, or someone had made a comment on this video when I'm talking about like what this symbolizes, like the radiant rays and all that stuff. And someone's like, well, no, this is not the Virgin Mary. This is Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And the symbolic, you know, like, so I'm like, oh, that clarified that this could be, you know, Eastern Catholic, which borrows a lot of the same iconic imagery. So it's confusing, but it's really fun to learn about. And the more I learn about it, the clearer it gets, if that makes sense. So this is part of that journey, because that's why I love being an antique and vintage dealer. That's how I learn about the world around me, through these tangible objects. And as I learn about the world around me through these objects, there's always some kind of, can I always like fill in some small cracks that I didn't expect, just by learning about maybe the history of the family that made this, or the artist that painted it, or the rendering it represents, the divine entity it represents. So it's how I learn, and that's why I have to share it with everyone. And YouTube's a great tool for that. So thank you for joining me. I'm your host, EJ Parker. Please subscribe. This coffee's almost done. It's done. All right. So this is Our Lady of Perpetual Help. This is a gorgeous chalkware rendering. You see the radiant rays. We see the Virgin Mary holding the Christ child. This is also like a shrine or grotto. We see here you have like a candle, right? Like so. So I glued this together, and I found this when I first started dealing in vintage and antique full time, like 4.5 years ago. And it's just amazing. And I haven't found one as beautiful ever since. And I'm not going to sell it because it's too fragile, and I love it too much. It's quite heavy, and again, you can see where I glued it. You see the base and the head of the Christ child. It's just too fragile, and I would hate to. I can't part with it. It's too gorgeous. Sometimes with these statues, this is all solid chalkware too. Probably weighs, I don't know, 6 pounds. But you see, it's like this porous chalk-like material, right? So this is gorgeous. Let me put this one. Now this one's a bit mysterious, which adds to the allure. This one is I don't know where it's made. It could be made in France. It could be made in Italy, or this could be an American maker. It's unmarked, believe it or not. Someone made this and didn't even mark it. So I don't know. My guess is French, but it could be U.S. So that goes there. That one I'm not going to sell. Some of these I do sell. I do sell these on my eBay store. I do sell religious statuary. All right, so let's move on. So we have that. Look to that one. Let's see. Let me put this back up. Thanks for joining me. I'm your host, EJ Parker. looking at Chalkware Statue. I'm gonna try that later. I don't want it to come crashing down. All right, so now let's look at this. This is a really nice statue I found recently. This is Saint Therese. She was a French saint. This is gorgeous. Now you see it's not in perfect condition, but it's okay. This is also made in Italy, Columbia Statuary. That's a name you'll see a lot if you go to thrift stores in an area that is predominantly Catholic. These end up in thrift stores and antique stores a lot. And I love these because I resell them at a reasonable price in my eBay store. Because if you do go to an actual, and I always talk about this, it's like price relationship. If you go to an actual like a faith or Christian bookstore that sells new stuff, the statuary there is so expensive. A statue like this is what, I don't know, 8 inches tall, 9 inches tall. A new rendering of Saint Therese would be maybe $75, $85, or even more. It's expensive, in my opinion. So if I can get this for a few dollars and then resell it for $20 or $25, people can save a lot of money, and then I make a couple bucks. Everyone's happy, and a lot of times, a lot of my clients are like are pastors or preachers or fathers. Because on the address it says that. And the cool thing is you can retouch these. Like people get markers or paints, and they just, if they wish to, they can just go over the chips or whatever. And I've done that before. And I do that. Like for example, on this one right here, this is Saint Cabrini. This is a popular one. I think this is a rare one too, actually. This one is this great. It's like a matte or almost like a semi-matte black, right? Her gown, and then earlier there was a few chips, but I just touched it up with this really good high quality made in Japan marker called the Posca markers. They're amazing, and now those chips are gone. I don't even know who they are. Like just looking at this, I need to do something about this, or maybe not. But this is like the same, similar size. This is Saint Therese. So Saint Therese. Let's talk about Saint Therese. I learned about her, and that's why I like finding these statues, because then I learn about the saints these statues represent. And it's kind of like, for a while I had a hard time with saints. I'm like, because I'm like trying to find my faith. It's like climbing. It's like kung fu. I don't think finding your faith, no matter what your faith is, you know what I mean? I don't think it's like you just get on the bus and you're on. Like, I think it's more like kung fu. It takes a long time, like sacrifice and hard work and dedication and meditation, contemplation, to like find like a spiritual realm within before you die. That's what I think. So for a while I thought, saints, I was raised Catholic, but then I left that faith tradition. Like, it's too, like, why worry about the saints? Like, go to the source, God, Christ. What, the saints, too much time spent on these people. And then I spent a lot of time like searching for answers and reading different, like Quran, Bible, Old Testament, all kinds of stuff. And then I realized, like, well, you can't, like, humans can't see God and live. You can't see the face of God. It's impossible. And we're supposed to be God-like. Well, how do you, it's so abstract. Like, how could you be God-like, but not like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't see the face of God. We don't know what God looks like. We never will. It's too uncomprehendable. It's just like, it's too profound, but yet we're supposed to be like that. It's like, how do you do that? So that's where the saints come in. That's why I've learned. So the saints are like, we've got this. Check this out. They're like a vessel, almost like an antique bottle for the divine spirit. That's what I'm telling myself, or how I'm approaching the saints. We don't worship the saints, or I guess you shouldn't worship the saints. They're kind of like examples. Like, they are captivated by the Holy Spirit, and they live their life in such a way that it influenced millions. That's the remarkable thing, because this is like before the internet. So Saint Therese, she I think died in her early 20s, from like tuberculosis, I think. So and then she like inspired millions, and she lived in like the late 19th century, like we're talking like late 1800s. So it's like, how does this? And she was known like for her childlike innocence and love of God, and she thought like simple acts like a smile or a kind word can do so much. You know what I mean? Like that kind of approach, like less is more, right? Um, and then it's like, well, and then she became a pope, or the pope made her a saint. It's like, well, how does this person have such reach before, like, like the internet or like our modern era? You know what I mean? You think about that. You know what I mean? It's remarkable. And then you kind of get the gist of, okay, well, she was inspired so greatly that it's like an inspiration and like a almost like a model, right? Because how can you think of like God as a model? Because it's so abstract. This kind of helps us humans kind of have a better idea, if that makes sense. And that's what these statues, kind of represent. I think other faiths, like where it's, the Protestant point of view can be, it's these are wrong, and the Bible says these are wrong. And I've read and I've watched documentaries about that argument. That was an actual legitimate like council, like in the year, I feel like, was it 300 or 600 AD? And the idea was like the Bible says like no engraven images of the divine, basically, and these aren't. This is a saint from earth, and this is like the human form of Christ. So God gave us His Son Jesus because we can't relate to God because it's unrelatable. The Jewish tradition doesn't have images of God, and nor does the Christian tradition. These are all just like Christ was the human, like the human form of divinity, which is still so profound. You know what I mean? I can't even. It's like it's so abstract and profound. So none of these are like God. Like none of these are like a statue of God. You know what I mean? So I think that's how like the argument. And I'm not, I have an open mind, and I get if it offends someone, like images of these, and I just, I don't know what to say about that. We have free will to bob and weave through things we may find offensive or not offensive through our lives. You know what I mean? But I think these are gorgeous, and if these help someone just focus their faith, well, then so be it. I attribute these to this. This is a metaphor that I use. So I'm also a professional musician. I'm a bass player. I play the double bass. The bass, like the cello, but it's like a foot and a half taller. That thing, the boom, 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 or the bow. And I studied that in college, and my bass professor had a really good point, and it was this: you have to practice every day, right? Or you have to meditate every day, or you have to practice kung fu every day, or work out every day. Whatever you want to perfect, you have to do every day in order to reach, a high level. So you have to make it easy for yourself to practice. So his idea was, which I agree with, and I did, and I do, is leave your double bass or your instrument out of the case and then have it accessible. All that means is having your bass unzipped and out of the case and laying on the ground where you can just pick it up and start playing it. That simple concept alone will make you play and practice a lot more because it's so convenient. It's there, done, pick it up. You don't have to go to the corner, unpack it, unzip it. It's just there, ready to go. It's like a reminder to practice. Having your upright double bass or your guitar out of the case, up against the wall next to your bed, is not going to make you a better musician. It's going to make you more prone to practice, which will make you a better musician. These statues are the same thing. Having this is not going to make you a better Christian or person. It's not going to make you pray. It's going to be a reminder or a prompt to meditate and contemplate and pray, right? Like you're not praying to this. It's just a reminder, as akin to having your instrument or your violin accessible out of the case on the desk. You'll pick it up and play it because it's there. This is the same thing. It's just a reminder to contemplate and to meditate. And I think praying and meditating is the same thing. I think so. That's what these like kind of like mean to me, I guess, from a subjective point of view. Objectively, I think I just love the hand painted details. So she was also known as a little flower, a very popular saint. She only lived like 24 years, I think, is laminar flow here. My fact hound, my fleet fingered fact hound, and my awesome mod, who's in Sweden right now, I think. So you can see just again the hand painted details. I haven't touched this one up, and I might not. So that's Saint Therese. So she had a remarkable reach before the internet. This is like late 1800s. Imagine that. All right, so let's put her there. Let's move on to something else. Let's check out one of these. This one is gorgeous. This is one of my favorites. This is a super beautiful statue of the Infant of Prague. I find a lot of these in my area. Maybe you do too. This is a rendering of the Christ child as a king. This globe and the cross represents his sovereignty over the world, and this is a symbol, like a blessing symbol. And then this is also this is unmarked. Let me double check that. So you don't want to wear rings with these things because they're just so porous. If you have a ring, you're just gonna chip it. Seriously. So a slave to fashion I may be, but not today. So there's no marker on this. This could be an American maker, but it's solid chalkware. I just love like the dreamy aesthetic. How it's like this like pastel, and you can see like the colors blur a little bit. So the Infant of Prague, what I've learned is it was a statue originally made in Spain in the late 1500s, like this, and then a rich woman or a noblewoman brought it, or paid to have it brought to Prague, Czechoslovakia, where it was venerated and highly venerated, and it was claimed uh, to to make some miracles happen, of like protection. So these are prayed. These are like offer like these are like blessings of these offer blessings of protection, prosperity, and things like that. And that's the idea. So it originated in Spain, and then it made its way to Czechoslovakia, and it's like the late 1500s. So it's a rendering of the Christ child presented as king. And again, this is like the sovereignty over. This is a globe. This is the globe. This is like Christ's sovereignty over the world, the four corners, and this is like a blessing symbol. I love this one. And usually the heads are always cracked off. Hello, everybody. I'm your host, EJ Parker. This is a live look through of my collection of vintage, mostly Christian traditional chalkware statues of Christ, Virgin Mary, and saints. Some of these are for sale. I do buy and sell a lot of these as well on my eBay store. So we're looking through. Welcome. This is gorgeous. Again, there's no maker's mark on this. I find a lot of these in my area. So what you find in your area is a reflection of the faith in your area, right? Like, it just makes sense. So that's a really nice one. I find a lot of those, and I have a lot more. This one I just have to show. This is not obviously this could be tied in. This is a chick from like an Easter chick, right? I found this at a flea market for $2, and this has to be from an Easter set. This is all solid chalkware, and it's hand painted. I love this thing. Easter stuff doesn't sell. Like, the best selling stuff from a vintage and antique dealer perspective is Halloween. Antique Halloween stuff, like I have a pumpkin up there, that kind of stuff. That stuff sells. It sells. And it sells for good money. The Easter stuff, Christmas stuff, it's got to be really special to sell, and quickly and for good money. But I just like this it's got this kind of kitschy kind of vibe to it. But this has got to be from an Easter set from the 50s, I'm guessing, or 40s. I like it. So, it's time for some water. Agua. So let's check out another one. Another. Try to organize this as I go. Okay. So this is another Infant of Prague. As I said, I find a lot of these. This is solid chalkware. Now these typically have a gown more often than not. You can find them sometimes without the gown, like this, where it's kind of painted, and then people make them or whatever. But this one, as you can see, has a hand-painted gown. It's really gorgeous. Sometimes they have a crown that is like actually bejeweled, like brass, really ornate, and those could be valuable in themselves. Those are the real ornate ones when it's like the statue. See, this is like a part of the mold of the chalkware, but sometimes they have them where it's an actual crown of brass or some other metal, and they're bejeweled and they go on the top, and it looks spectacular. This one is part of the mold. You can see the base here; it's like semi-hollow. That's from the production process. These were made upside down in a mold, and then some of these holes were used to let air bubbles escape when they dried, so they formed evenly, and then people would hand make these gorgeous robes, and you could see the moon and stars. This is probably mid 20th century. A rendering of the Infant of Prague. This one's great. This one's in my eBay store right now. I think it's like $20, give or take. If you buy these new, they're extremely expensive. And what to look for, usually, like what's broken on these is the cross on the crown and the blessing, the fingers right there. Those are always broken, and the cross on the globe. This one's not. It's remarkable. And always the head. I hate to say it, but always the heads are always broken. And I know, it's just the first thing they fall off a shelf or whatever. It's just the head breaks, but you can glue it. People do. All right. Let me see. Here we have Saint Joseph and the Christ Child. This is like almost like a bust, I'd say. This is heavy. It's all solid chalkware, mid 20th century. This one is unmarked. I still have the Goodwill sticker, $3 and change. There's no maker's mark on this, but it is solid chalkware, hand painted. Saint Joseph and the Christ Child. You can see it's chipped there. I just rediscovered this. This was sitting on a shelf, and I'm like, oh wow. So I find a lot of Saint Josephs. A lot, and I have a lot that are not even listed in my store that I need to kind of list. So that's a good reminder. This is another. Let's see. This is another Infant of Prague. So this is the kind of statue I'm saying where this would definitely have a gown, but it was removed or not made at some point in history. This is solid chalkware. This has a maker's mark, but there's no actual 755, but it doesn't say who made it. This could be Maziano Art Craft, but I'm not sure. One of the makers that is very near to where I live is Maziano Art Craft. They're in Cleveland, and they're still around, which is awesome. They make chalkware that's great. I have a piece here. They make chalkware like religious statuary like this that can rival anything from Europe. And they're still. What I want to do is go out there and do a video from there and see what they have in the shop, and I'm trying to meet someone and talk about their history. So that's cool, and that's not too far from where I live. This one, I like this one because it has these rhinestones embedded in the crown. Typically you don't see that. These are always like painted on. So this one I thought had a unique touch, and I think the head. Again, the heads are always broken and glued, and sometimes you can't tell, but this one also feels like it's either semi-hollow. Like upon tapping it, it's got a weird vibration, so it may be semi-hollow. Sometimes they even use reinforcements. Like when you find a hole at the bottom, that's for like a reinforcement of some sort. But this was it feels like it's semi-hollow. But again, it's all hand painted. Mid 20th century is probably like 50s, late 40s. Because again, what happens is in the late 50s, not just religious statuary, but toys, household goods, switches from whatever they were made of into plastic like this, right? Things like this. This is that really omnipresent plastic of the late 50s, early 60s, 70s, and probably even early 80s. Right, just because it became so much more durable, so much more durable plastic, a lot lighter to ship, and cheaper to produce. This one doesn't say where it's made, but these are around I find those everywhere. You know what I mean? Go to a rummage sale. If you're looking to resell vintage and antique statuary, go to rummage sales in your area, and you could find some gorgeous statuary, very affordable. Those are really good places to look. I think I found like boxes, you know, where every statue is like 50 cents. So you get a box of statues for like $5. It's great, and some could be really beautiful. All right, so let me put that one there. Let's look at this one. We'll talk about this one because it's right there. This is a gorgeous, and this has got really good response on YouTube, and I made some videos about this. Saint Gabrini. She is remarkable for a lot of reasons. She was the first U.S. citizen to become a saint. She was born in Italy in the late 1800s, and then she became, you know, a U.S. citizen in like 1909 or 1907. No, I have it right here. She was born in 1850. I have my notes right here. 1850, she was born in Italy. All right, Saint Gabrini. This is a gorgeous chalkware statue of her. I love this. I just found this. You can see it's like a semi matte or semi gloss. It's kind of like in the middle. So it caught my eye. It's from like an antique mall. And again, this is all hand painted. You see how it's rendered. A little chip there. And then there's some information in the back. What does it say? I think it says Catholic Statuary Company, number 46. Sometimes those major marks can be hard to read just because of the mold. So, she was born in 1850 in Italy, St. Gabrini. In 1909, she became a U.S. citizen. She passed away in 1917, and then she was declared a saint in 1946. So, I guess she never knew she became a saint, I guess, on Earth. So this is a chalkware statue of her, and I think this one's quite valuable. It's a lot of these I don't really run to the value first of all. when I find these, it's like, well, who is it? Because if you when you first get into like religious statuary, you always recognize, at least I did, like, you know, it's Jesus Christ or Virgin Mary. But then like the saints, it's like, well, there's so many. It's like I can't just like see it and guess the saint. But now I'm getting better at guessing or knowing what these or who these statues represent. But this one's a rare one. Saint Gabrini. This is the first one I found of her, and she's got good responses when I made videos about this particular statue. This one I probably will eventually sell her after I just learn about this a bit more. But this one's worth like around, if you want to talk value, which I am a vintage and antique dealer, that's how I pay the bills. Like $80, $75 on eBay. They're asking like over $100. It's with the value from what I found with these statues is the I don't want to say obscure, but maybe like the less well known the saint is, the more money it gets, because it's just rare, right? It's kind of like, it's the same rule with Coke bottles, where it's counterintuitive, where if you have a Coke, like an antique Coke bottle, right? An old-timey antique Coke bottle, and it's from, you look at the bottom and it says New York City, and you're like, oh man, everyone's heard of New York City. It's gonna be worth a lot of money. No, it's not. It means that's the most common one, because New York produced a ton, or Chicago, or Cleveland back then. What the valuable antique Coke bottles are the ones from like these really small towns in Iowa or Ohio. You know what I mean? That you never heard of. Those are the ones that are worth a lot, and sometimes a fortune, because they're rare, and that's what collectors want, the rare one. So keep that in mind. It's like a good like rule of thumb with value when it comes to old things. With these old statues of the saints, I find a lot of St. Anthony, a lot of St. Joseph, like this. Let me show you. I have a St. Anthony right here. I have some in my store right now, eBay store. I think I have St. Joseph's in my store and St. Anthony's. So I find a lot of these two. The St. Joseph holding the Christ child right there. This is a gorgeous statue. I like the size. as well. It's like what, 8 or 9 inch, just because it's space is limited, right? And it's enough to where you can see great artistic detail. And I even like the way it looks. As the wind is gusting snow past my window, it's like probably 8 degrees Fahrenheit right now. Seriously. And when you go outside, like I went into my shop this morning, and I got to walk like 15 feet through the snow. Not very far, but it's so cold it burns your skin. It's remarkably cold, and I can't go live in there. I always go live in my shop and show you what I sold overnight, and I talk about whatever. But I can't do it today. Otherwise, I'd freeze. There could be some entertainment value in that, but I'd die. It's too cold. Did I show you this? Quick little detour. I got my pen out last night. I did more Sacred Heart tattoo designs. So which one? Number 1, I can't read backwards. Number 1, number 2, number 3 or 4. Right now I'm liking the best. I think I'm liking 2 or 1. I'm kind of into the vibe, like the semi-realistic heart vibe. And this is like the love heart vibe. I don't know. I want to frame this and give it to like a tattoo place. And I'd be delighted if someone got a tattoo of one of my Sacred Hearts. I love drawing these. So I'm going to compile just different designs. Maybe get a book. Have a book published of Sacred Heart. They don't have to be tattoo designs. But there's no tattoo designs. I got one on my arm that I designed myself. And I keep drawing them because it's so fun to draw. And the more you think about the Sacred Heart of Christ, the more profound it gets. It's like, wait a minute. So the human form of the divine, and then then you think about the actual heart of Christ, the human form of the divine. It's like so profound. It's so profound. And the reason, I lost my faith about a year ago, and then trying to like re-find it, but I realized it's like climbing a ladder like for a lifetime of like sacrifice and intense contemplation and hard work. That's what I think it is. But if you think about this, the heart of Christ, it's like so profound what it actually really is. So I got it because I have proved that Christ, in my quest back to find faith, that I found Tacitus, this Roman historian, who was known for his accuracy, wrote of the crucifixion of Christ like within the year 80 AD. So within the lifetime of Christ, this famed historian, who was a Roman politician, so who had access to all the documents and records, and that was also pagan. So he was not promoting Christianity. He wrote that Christ was crucified for promoting like a mischievous superstition. Is how I refer to early Christianity. So then that proves that Christ's heart was real. Christ was a real person. And then that's when like your brain or my brain is like the profundity of it's so profound. You know what I mean? So it's fun to draw those. So I draw those and I'll keep drawing those. So let's move. So this St. Anthony is gorgeous. This one again is unmarked. The St. Joseph, it's got to be from the same maker because there's same attributes, right? We can see the base and how it's formed. Gorgeous. Let's see. Let's ask ChatGPT about St. Anthony, shall we? And I know it's been when I first started doing eBay full time, I would sell a lot of statuary, a lot. St. Anthony. And I would make mistakes. Like I would assume every woman wearing a veil in a pastel was the Virgin Mary or apparition of the Virgin Mary, and people would correct me very kindly. They'd be like, "Oh no, this is Saint so and so of so and so," and then I realized, okay, I need to be way more specific and do research. So I did. So Saint Anthony, right here. I found this at a thrift store about 2 years ago. Birth, August 5th, 1195 in Portugal, Lisbon, Portugal. Fernando Martins, let's see, I can't even pronounce his last name. And then let's see, Franciscan friar. He joined the Franciscan order in 1220. That's a long time ago. That's what, 800 years ago? Taking the name of Anthony in honor of St. Anthony of the Desert. Gifted preacher, known for his powerful sermons and ability to convert people. He was called the hammer of heretics for combating heresy. Wow. Miracle worker. Anthony is often called the wonder worker due to numerous miracles attributed to him, both during his life and after his death. Let's see. He is the patron saint of lost things, stemming from a story of where a stolen book of Psalms was miraculously returned after St. Anthony's prayer. He was canonized, becoming a pope in the year 1232 by Pope Gregory IX, less than 1 year after his death, a record time in the church's history. Well, I didn't know that. Let's see. Relics. His tongue, incorrupt and venerated as a relic, symbolizes his eloquence and dedication to preaching the gospel. Wow, interesting. So there you have it. That's a gorgeous statue. Again, I don't mind the chips on it, and people don't mind. So like, don't worry. Like if you are reselling these things, don't worry about like the chips or cracks, because people still lovingly repair them and buy them. So let's see this. These I want to compare together because they are all three renderings of the Infant of Prague. These are, I don't know, I'd say 7 inches tall. I love this size statue, a tabletop little. These are all mid 20th century. How do I know? Well, this one's got the date. I love when that happens. 1948 by Nudie. This one, the head's been repaired. You can see the glue, the old school glue, right? I love it. Standing on the globe, on like the stars, and then again the globe indicating sovereignty over the world, the blessing. This is my only Maziano art craft, I think, that I have right now in my collection or my store. Maziano art craft is based out of Cleveland, Ohio, and they're still in business. They make really great statuary, and this has got the M with a circle. So usually I find a lot of their stuff and I sell a lot of it. That's why I don't have any. It always moves. And some of their stuff is some of the statues of the saints are gorgeous, and those always just sell. That's why I don't have any. I think I don't even have any in my store. This is the only one. And it's got this M within the circle. Sometimes it'll say Maziano Art Craft. Sometimes they're unmarked. This one's got more of a beige and gold color. This one has got to be my favorite. This one I just found recently at a thrift store. I even made a video when I found this. This one was just so pretty. The pastel colors and the mold. This one's made Palladini Statuary. I think it says, I can't read that. New York. So that's another name in religious statuary. This is just super amazing that it's not broken. I think this was $2 at a thrift store. This thing was waiting for me. This is what I was looking for that night, and when I walked in, I couldn't believe it. It was just sitting there on the shelf, the knickknack shelf. All hand painted. It's not dated, but if I had to make a date, I guess, 1945, I'd say, give or take. The paint is just amazing. And again, what's always broken are the crosses and the blessing symbol, the fingers and the cross and the globe. Those are always broken, like as we see here, right? Now, what do I do about that? Let me show you if I have. So these are 3 versions from 3 different companies of the Infant of Prague, which again was a statue created in the late 1500s in Spain, and then some noblewoman brought it to Czech Republic where it remains, and it protected the city, and it's venerated and it's still there from what I think. So what I do about this, let me show you. If I have my markers nearby, yes, I do. So this is how I touch these things up. Check this out. Let me see. These, I love these. I should get paid to sponsor these. Posca markers. These are phenomenal. All the art I do, like the stuff, like it's all from these. So it's like they're made in Japan and the ink's made in France or something like that. So it's a multi-international endeavor, all right? So I get this gold going and then I just touch it up like that. Because and if I find a cross that's suitable, I'll do that. I'll glue it. But this will at least make it look better, and then it'll also make the glue, if I do attach something in the future, it'll make it stick better. You know what I mean? Because this chalkware is porous. Like almost like dusty, like it's like chalk, right? So if I find a cross, I'll glue it to it. Yeah. So look at it, it's already looking better. There's a gold marker. And this is a very lustrous gold. That I got this, like all the gold stuff you see, like my photo panels, like this is all from these. Like Christmas, like 2 years ago, I got 10 of these gold markers and that was it. And I was happy. I just started painting everything gold, and it looks good. It shines. I get old frames, and I'll paint them with these. It's kind of like painting. All right, let me stay focused. So I'm just gonna do this. And you can even touch it up and add detail, and it looks like authentically amazing. So there, that white part's gone. And I'll even touch up, like for example, on this one, I don't want to go overboard though. Just touch up sometimes a glaring part that it's really, you know. But I like old things, so the old aesthetic of something being chipped doesn't bug me. Like I like it better because it makes it more unique, and that's probably, you know, the common sentiment among antique loving people like me, and hopefully you too. So just touch up on the cloak. Just where I see some gold, just, I don't know. I don't do this typically to anything else, you know, that I buy and sell. But the statues, sometimes I'll do it if I see it that can be done tastefully. Like, okay, let's do another, just show you right here. So the St. Anthony on the foot right there, let's try to make that go away. Let's see. So this gold marker, let's see what happens. If it disappears. Yeah, it's a little bit lighter, but it doesn't look like a chip. It doesn't like catch your eye like, oh, it's chipped, you know. Not to be deceptive, but it's just, let's see. This one sounds semi-hollow. But yeah, see, it's all right. So that's something you can do if you want to. And these markers are great again because it really, it dries quick and it's kind of like a paint marker. It's somewhere in between like a marker and a paintbrush, which I love. Excuse me. All right, so we looked at. Excuse me. I have a few more of these spread out amongst my shop. Oh yeah, this one we have to look at. This is gorgeous. This is amazing. I found this one at a thrift store like 2 years ago, and I had it in my eBay store for a while. Then I took it off. I'll put it back on eventually. This one is amazing. This is all solid chalkware. This is like late. This is probably 60s. No. This is gotta be like. There's no date. There's no maker's mark. Early 50s. There's like a little grotto or shrine. Christ on the cross. It wouldn't hang on the wall, but it's like a little grotto. 2 angels at feet. The color is it's interesting, right? It's definitely not, because a lot of stuff with Catholicism is like realistic, right? It's like trying to be realistic. That's why I've been really, and I like the Orthodox stuff. The Orthodox part of my terminology. The Orthodox icons, where it's more unrealistic, um, just different renderings of the divine, um, to help conceptualize these divine concepts, which is so profound and impossible. The Catholic tradition is more realistic, but this one is, as you can see, it's got like this red and silver and black paint and like these sparkles in various places, which is quite interesting. Again, this would usually be painted realistic, but it's not. And on eBay, I've seen a few of these with different paint jobs. So if you know who made these, let me know. There's no maker's mark of any kind. It's solid. I mean, it can almost be like a Mexican piece, but I don't think I have Mexican I have Mexican statuary, and that stuff is made typically, or at least the contemporary items are made of. Let me show you this. I've figured this before. Like this. This is contemporary. This is a Mexican-made piece. This is the Nino Doctor, which is a very interesting mix of faith, science, and some folk traditions. This is the Christ child as a doctor. These are venerated to provide blessings of, like, healing the sick, things like that. And this is I got this at an antique mall. There's a Mexican community within the county I live in, and we get these awesome faith statues from Mexico. This is a hollow, like a resin, like a plastic resin. It feels more like a resin than a rubbery plastic, but they're hand painted, which gives them, in my opinion, like an old school aesthetic. It's got this gorgeous hand painted look to it, right? It's all, and this was like, I think like $28, $30. So it's affordable, because if you go to like a Christian, contemporary bookstore, and a statue made in China would be, $120 of this size. Excuse me. So I get these. I want to acquire more of these. There's a gorgeous that I want to get. I want to get once I get the money coming in. There's a gorgeous Marian apparition statue made of resin from Mexico. I forget the specific name of her, but it's amazingly done. Very exquisite. I want to get that, and then learn about that apparition. I don't have. See, I have so many. I have a gorgeous. I have two gorgeous statues of Our Lady of Guadalupe, made of that Mexican plaster. It's kind of like a resin. It's not plaster, it's like a resin, and it's almost like airbrushed and very pastel and dreamy. I didn't bring her up though, but she's in I have two. One's on my eBay store. This again is Mazziano Art Craft, made probably in Cleveland, Ohio. I think that's it. I wanted to document these because it's fun to have these all together and look at. They're gorgeous to look at all together, in my opinion. So that's been a look at this gorgeous collection of early mid 20th century religious chalkware, faith chalkware, primarily from all from the Christian tradition. So there you have it. There'll be a lot more of these coming into my store and collection, and I will share that with you all. It's 5 degrees out, so if you're in Ohio, stay warm. But that's it. So thanks for checking in, and I will talk to you later.